Hi, my name is Maria, and it's extremely bright here, so yeah, it's uncomfortable, but let's do it. And I am a quest designer from CD Projekt Red. And today we have gathered here to analyze, scrutinize, and redesign my Phantom Liberty quest, Dazed and Confused, like I am right now. So I deliberately picked a quest from like the side content, not the main plot. If you haven't finished Phantom Liberty yet, I am not going to spoil anything for you. However, we will obviously spoil the whole plot of this side quest. So if for some reason you are absolutely determined to play it without prior knowledge, then just, I guess, leave. But please stay, because I mean, it's a light, absurd comedy, so I am sure that you will still enjoy it, even if you've seen this presentation right now with me. So, quick about me. As I said, I am a quest designer, and, well, I used to be a QA on Cyberpunk. I am an NPC in Cyberpunk, so if you really don't like this presentation, you can always just find me in Night City and, well, exact your punishment, I guess. Yeah, but I have to mention Thronebreaker, of course, because it's the love of my life. It was the first game I actually worked on in CDPR, and it's an experience that completely changed my plans for the future, I guess, my whole life. I'm absolutely certain that I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for this game and for our amazing team that, well, is responsible for it. So if you haven't played it and if you've never heard about it even, please check it out. I'm sure it's on sale somewhere. So yeah, play it so that I can talk about it next year without spoiling the plot for you. And yeah, let's go back to Phantom Liberty, I guess, but as I said, Ron Baker. Check it out. So our plan for today is to, as I said, quickly analyze my quest and, like, I guess, analyze its strengths and weaknesses, and then to redesign it and address all the issues that I have come up with so far. Now, I have to admit that I'm actually very proud of the quest. Otherwise, I probably wouldn't be here nitpicking at it. I think there was a lot of stuff that was done quite well on the design end of things, and obviously I am very proud of my whole team who worked on it from other disciplines. So I have to mention my great writer, Tomek Matera. He did an amazing job, and I had the greatest partner in our level designer, that's Mariusz Kubów. And really everyone involved seemed to just see how much we care, and they all did an amazing work. So, well, I mean, the most vocal complaint I got about this one is actually that. So, the bathwater issue. You cannot drink it, you cannot buy it, but I swear at some point I am going to patch that. So honestly, I love the quest. it's very fun. Still, I feel like it's usually useful to try to look back on your work, and really any content that, way to distract me, I mean, any content you consume, even if it's just like, obviously games, but also movies, books, etc. I always try to push myself to look for stuff that I can use, that I could use as inspiration. But also, I usually ask myself, why doesn't it work for me exactly, or what would I do to make it into a game instead of whatever it is. Still, sorry, yeah, I got distracted way too much by the photos. It's extremely stressful. Anyway, we are going to look at the quest design area today specifically to figure out what worked well, what didn't, what we want to keep and it shouldn't fall victim to the redesign, or what didn't quite hit the spot and needs to be done better. So quickly, what is Dazed and Confused all about? Because I am sure that most of you, well, maybe some of you are not quite sure. So, the story revolves around these three characters living in the militia-controlled district of Night City, Dogtown. Shank owns his own BD store, BD meaning braindance store. If you're not familiar with Cyberpunk lore, braindances are kind of like movies, only they're filmed from first-person perspective and it's like from within your brain. So they capture vision, sounds, smells, even emotions, basically everything you would experience in a given situation. And then they can be re-experienced by the audience. So basically, if you were watching my brain dance right now, you would be sweating like a pig and being just, consumed by anxiety. But for whatever reason, Tool, Shank's partner and I guess best friend, Tool is addicted to these seances and he is specifically obsessed with this braindance starlet, Lina Malina. Now, Lina Malina has some aspirations about her future career. She is currently filming in Dogtown, but she's striving to make it out of here, and she wants to become this big-time braindance star in Night City. For now, she's mostly filming like gang-related content, life on the streets. It's all rather vulgar. I guess she dabbles in porn a little bit, but yeah. It is also, in a way, enticing and colorful, and that's probably why Tool is so obsessed with her. Still, okay, so the player, as V, is initially introduced to this situation when they receive a hint from the local fixer, that's Mr. Hands, and apparently Lina Malina has been kidnapped and she needs to be rescued from Brainporium, that's Shank's braindance store. As V arrives at the store to save Lina, it turns out that she's not actually there. The person locked up in the store's basement is Tool, or rather Tulina, because you see there was this power surge just as Tool was reliving one of Lina's movies. He was being her, so now he's stuck believing that he's actually Lina Malina. Shank locked him up in the basement for his safety, but also came up with this plan to make some money out of it, so he can, I guess, pay off his debt mostly, but he also wants to be rich. Everyone in Dogtown is obsessed with, I guess, making it out of there. So anyway, the job he offers V is to get the real Lina Malina to the braindance store, and then Tool and Lina will film this braindance together. I guess it's Lina Malina meets her doppelganger. If V figures out a way to get Lina Malina to join Shank and Tool, they will meet back at the store to film the braindance. Lina and Tulina will fight over which one of them is the real deal. And in the midst of all the chaos, V will take over as the director of the scene. Player can instruct Lina to, I guess, pretend that Tulina is either her clone that was created by the government in some sort of a secret program, or V can tell Lina to pretend that Tulina is actually her long-lost twin sister. That's another path through that, and then they will reunite and take over Night City's braindance scene. Then there's also an optional path through this confrontation. If V feels that Tool is being taken advantage of by Shank, you can also instead opt to snap him out of the delusion and expose him to one of his fan letters to Lina that was very deep and emotionally involved. And that's how Tool just snaps out of it, in a way. So to kick off the actual postmortem, because that was just a summary of the plot, the thing that I'm probably most proud of, but also it's one of my biggest regrets, it's the branching. On one hand, each of the quest beats is quite complex when it comes to like different approaches that the player can take. You get this wide selection of choices depending on your play style, character progression, your like own cyberpunk fantasy. But then certain approaches will result in cutting off other content due to how linear the overall story structure is. So have a look at examples from our quest editor. Here, that's the sequence where you meet Lina and get to her place and then convince her to cooperate. So you see on the left, you have like all the different gameplay approaches to getting in there. You see it branches quite a bit. Then in the scene, it's more connected to, I guess, either using some facts from different quests, your decisions within even this bit. It lets you play more into the narrative side of things, while the part on the left is, as I said, more concerned with gameplay. They are different, but both offer versatility and they are very flexible in reacting to your actions and choices. And overall, I think that this sequence works really well and covers a lot of different player types, let's say. But still, on the other hand, we have the overall quest structure. So while it was important for me to provide alternative paths through each beat, some of the solutions simply result in cutting off. As you can see, if you get out of the first little block, that's Brainporium, that's meeting Shank and Tool, in that sequence, you can simply choose to let Tool out of the basement, and that is a nice option for the player, but still it results in the fact that you are not meeting Lina at all. So we invested in the scene, we invested in that sequence, and we are getting no results from that. And if I could, I would definitely change that, and that's why we are going to do that today. So that leads us to the next issue, let's call it, and that's path exposition. On one hand, as I said, we have plenty of different approaches provided for the player. We are setting a goal, and you are free to explore possible solutions as per your own preferences. But then some of the paths didn't receive as much exposition as the others, to the point that people might have simply not realized that they are not supposed to follow one specific path through the sequence. If they approached it more openly, they could explore other options. So the Ganger confrontation, which you will see in a moment, serves as a good example for that. Because in front of Lina's apartment, Lina's crew is waiting for her arrival, I guess. As it will turn out, they are just like a bunch of scavengers hired as amateur actors to star in Lina's brain dances. And we have provided so many ways to get them to leave the area. I had the support of, as I mentioned, an excellent level designer, Mariusz Kubów, who worked with me here, and elsewhere actually. We made sure that you had this very diverse selection of different challenges, like stealth, based on character skill, based on player skill. You name it, it was there. But in the end, most players just went with the option to run in and start shooting at them. And that's the path that got most exposition, I guess mostly because of the way I was setting up objectives. So some players didn't realize that they could have done something else here. And I wish I had done more on my end to encourage that. Moving on, let's talk a bit about the characters, because we had two that were very intensely fleshed out, and two that didn't quite get as much spotlight. Lina Marina has the strongest presence in the quest. Even when she's not technically on screen, everything revolves around her. She's reflected in other characters in the quest. There is a lot of environmental storytelling provided to give her some additional context. Actually, I would encourage you to explore her apartment, specifically yourself. You will find like full storylines weaved into the world, from her determination to get that bathwater business going to her massive ego and self-adoration. Just check it out. It's a fun exploration, I guess, of the location. As her counterpart, we have Tulina. Tulina is right in the center of the main decision you have to make in the story. And together, I feel like they strangely complement each other. It's pretty cute, I believe. Play the quest and you will see. And their shared end state, that's like where they unite and become this brain-dance duo. I feel like it's the most fleshed out consequence of the quest. So you get to know them pretty well. On the other hand, we have Shank and Tool, who both needed more opportunities for the player to get to know them. Shank turned out to be kind of a dick at best, taking advantage of his partner's state. And we didn't really get to see how much he cares for Tool, and that was my intention initially. So speaking of Tool, we only really get to hear from him in his letter to Lina, and like there's a bit of dialogue, I guess, at the end of one of the end states. And in the letter itself, he comes off just miserable. So as a result, the path to cure his delusion was only attractive because it feels morally superior. But it's unlikely for the players to fall in love with what these two characters have. And I guess compared to this vision of Lina and Turina taking over Night City, Tool and Shank just staying in Brainporium and trying to pay their debts didn't feel as attractive. Which leads us to our next issue, which is post-content. As I've mentioned before, looking from today's point of view, it's clear to me that I picked my favorite finale and I just invested a lot into it. In my defense, there is actually a bit of backstory for that. So for context, while all the end states of the quests lead to some sort of custom dialogue and some rewards, for a large part of our production, I was missing a proper reward for the scenario where Lina and Turina join forces and become Braindance stars. And what I actually wanted here was just a Lina Marina outfit for the player, like tights and all, That's all I wanted, but unfortunately we were out of budget, and at that point I couldn't get it for our quest. So from there I started looking for ways to create some sense of reward for the player, but without involving other departments who could no longer support us here. And that is how we ended up with an interactive, message-based fun newsletter from Lina and Tulina, even though it was pretty low cost because it was mostly just messages set up by me. I believe it supported this feeling of the game kind of living on after the quest and the world changing because of the way you made your choices in the quest. And there is also my favorite little hidden interaction where you can actually meet Lina and Tulina on this makeshift red carpet event. You can take selfies with the stars. Shank is now their agent somewhere in the background there. And even the reformed scavenger crew shows up if you haven't killed them up until then. So yeah, it was nice. It was nice to hide this actually somewhere in Night City because it's not communicated in any way. And yeah, this was very much done just on the side. It wouldn't have worked so well if it wasn't for our writer who was able to snuck in some custom dialogue lines for that. So yeah, he really pulled together this whole interaction. And there is one more thing that really sticks out to me now, and I really wish I had seen it before. So that's the brain dance store, Brainporium, actually, the location itself. This one just happened upon us completely randomly. Shank's store was supposed to be just this ugly, poor container somewhere in Dogtown. But then our open world team decided to drop a piece of content that was supposed to take place in this massive head-shaped building right in the middle of Dogtown, and they were generous enough to offer it to me as a replacement. And obviously I took it because it looks amazing. If you've played Phantom Liberty yourself, I'm sure you'll agree. It's absolutely magnificent. And yeah, I just desperately wish that I still had time at that point to make sure that the store gets its own proper storyline in my quest. And so, now that we have established our areas in need of improvement, as a quest designer, how would I address them? Let's quickly, I guess, redesign dazed and confused. So we will split the process into these three general parts. First, we need to re-establish the foundation of the quest, the framework upon which you spin different storylines and paths. Here, I would normally start by defining my focal points. To put it simply, it's like a handful of aspects of the quest that will guide you through the process of designing the whole story. Think of it as like the most important part of the quest that you are just determined to see materialized in the game. It can be something completely simple. Think of it as, I don't know, a funny line of dialogue, some visually striking scene, maybe an important relationship or something from your past that you would like to reference in one way or another. And I find it useful personally to keep this small set of things that must stay in for me as a designer. It helps me prioritize when iterating on the quest. So obviously you have to fit within a certain budget, a certain scope. But if you know what needs to stay in, well, it helps keep you on track of what's most important. In this case, I had two moments that were closest to my heart. One is the moment when the player first realizes that they are not actually in the store to rescue Lina Malina. So you enter the store, it's completely trashed. You hear screams from the basement. It's not your first gig in Night City, so you know the drill. You rush down, open the door, you're expecting this damsel in distress surrounded by thugs in need of a lesson, and you're there to deliver it, I guess. And there you find Tool and Shank in this ridiculous negotiation. That picture dictated a lot of decisions surrounding this sequence, from the layout of the store itself to the way Mr. Hands, so the fixer, communicates with you about the gig, to like placement of posters around the store. It was all guided by the fact that you're supposed to be surprised when you get to the basement. And my second focal point was the final confrontation when Lina and Tulina battle it out on the stage as they both claim to be the one and true Queen of Dogtown. Here I have to mention our excellent cinematics team, who made the suggestion to actually move this whole sequence to the upstairs area of the store. If you will play the game and check it out, you will see that it's this more natural stage-like location. It previously took place in the basement, and it lacked proper drama. It had a much better vibe there, so yeah, I'm very grateful for the suggestion. And I have to mention one last, I guess, focal point, or at least something that was important to me. It was to flesh out that Lina Malina is really grinding for a better life. And it felt to me like kind of a little internal nod to our designers, who can really pull together something from nothing at times. And yeah, it's interesting to see full quest beats created practically with no budget, and it always felt like something Lina would do. And so with our focal points, we will now define our final states. So, as we have covered in this postmortem, the end states felt very uneven. And one of the finales, my favorite one, is clearly stronger than the rest. So to mitigate that, I would now split the result of the main confrontation into just two end states. Either the braindance shoot was successful or it was not. And in order to keep more threads active simultaneously, we will remove the option to cure tool out of the sequence completely, and we will keep it as a separate thread available to the player regardless of that. So speaking of threads, instead of splitting the quest into these three main consecutive beats, so meeting Shank and Tool, meeting Lina, and the finale, they will linked in a strict order. We will now build sections of the story around our three main characters. And this split will guide us through the next stage of the redesign, which is all about variety. Now, bear in mind, you will always be short on budget, obviously, and that is why we try to limit the fluff while still weaving in diverse paths to explore. What I mean here is that if it doesn't work for one of the potential finales, let's just not invest in it. So we will define different storylines and motivations that guide each of the characters, and they will serve as the main themes in each of the quest threads. Starting with Tool. As we have established, he is a braindance addict, and he has this impossible dream of becoming Lina Malina. As a result of a quest event, he gets stuck actually believing he's her. So these main storylines will be explorable to the player, and they will somehow be resolved, or at least it will be possible to resolve them throughout the quest. For Shank, he is struggling to keep the Brainporium running. He is deep in debt to shady people who won't shy away from violence. And he's also deeply concerned with Tool's poor mental condition, even before Tool has his braindance accident. As for Lena's quest threads, her strongest motivation is the dream of becoming a huge braindance star in Night City. But she also simply wants to get out of Dogtown in the first place, and she will claw her way out by whatever means necessary. When Tulina enters the picture, she spots this chance to break out of this world she doesn't really want to belong in anymore. Now that we have established the main quest threads concentrated around our characters, we will let them interact with each other. Because different motivations of our characters will come together as they actually support the same goal. Shank is searching for a way to keep his store afloat, and Dina is trying to get her merch business to kick off. Certain threads share a corresponding sentiment. Tool dreams of being just like Lina Malina. Lina knows that her life is nothing to really dream about, and she aspires to something greater. These interconnections represent how the quest threads influence each other and how they come together to create different final states for each main issue touched upon during the quest. So have a look at our old structure before the changes. And here is what it would look like after the redesign. I am not sure if you can see what's written in the little blocks, but basically, you can start from any of the chunks related to each character. You still have this point where they all meet to produce the brain dance. And then you have a bunch of post-content related to that. So as we've removed the linearity from the overall structure, you can make your initial contact with any of the characters. You can learn a little bit about them, and it's all prior to the turning point of the power surge and Tool becoming Tulina. Certain quest paths will be available even before you deal with Tool's problems. Others, like figuring out the fate of the Brainporium, will naturally grow from your progression throughout other quests. And most importantly, you will no longer be cut off from the decision to help Tool, to cure him, I guess, after the main confrontation during the brain dance shoot, and that is the case in, the old design, let's call it. So it functions as this separate beat, and it can actually lead to an optional resolution where you learn that if Tool lands the role of Lina's sidekick, he would actually opt to stay in character as Tulina, even if he was cured of the delusion. So that would give the player a sense of Tool's agency in following this path, and that was missing from the original plot. So to quickly sum up, as you remember, we have listed a bunch of issues to address with this fast-track redesign. And now, through some changes within the quest design area itself, we've been able to address them one by one, hopefully. We have loosened up the structure of the adventure, so now the player can explore different threads as they see fit. Before, during, and after the main storyline unfolds. We have also attached more content to the characters of Shank and Tool to flesh them out a bit more in comparison to Lina and Tulina. And the fate of Brainporium, the beautiful brain dance store in the big old head, that has become one of the post-content threads, and yeah, it's linking the motivations of our main characters. But there is also one final step, one that is in a way present throughout the design process, but I feel like it deserves its own mention here. One thing that will always make your content unique is weaving in these connections between you, the designer, and the most important character of all, your player. And I literally think of that collective figure of you or of them all the time, as is the case probably for many of you in the audience. I built this set of like 1,000 different people in my head, and I am trying to make them all happy all at once. And obviously there is a trap in that, in an effort to create paths for everyone to enjoy. You might catch yourself actually building like a one-size-fits-all kind of story, making your choices like blend enough to fit all tastes. If you find ways for your players to realize their own fantasy, but also let them see there were different approaches that they could have followed if they wanted to. I feel like that's the most important thing we can do as designers. There's such a power in the presence of a path unpicked, right? So if I am playing as a character who shows empathy and heart, and it feels completely different if I see that in given situation I could have picked a ruthless path instead of going with the compassionate approach. I feel like if I know that I'm actively choosing to play as this specific character archetype, I guess, it feels so much richer, at least for me. And at last but not least, don't forget about one more character, and that is yourself, of course. And as we are headed into this AI-affected era of our work, I feel like it's more important than ever to make sure that your work represents who you are in one way or another. Perhaps it's like a reference to something close to your heart, or maybe it's an inside joke that will make you smile sometime down the road when you've played the quest so many times it's impossible to enjoy it for what it is. And as designers, we are going through this unique experience of building a relationship that spans across time and space, right? Because there is this figure sometime in the future where your game will actually come out and someone will play it. And I think about this person all the time. You know, I try to get to know them. I'm looking for ways to surprise them, to amuse them, and they don't even know I exist. Then years later, the game comes out, and in turn, it would be nice for them to get to know me, or well, you, as they interact with your work and they search for scenarios that you didn't think of, and then they smile as they find out that you did. You know, for me as a player, there's something deeply magical about the moment when I do something and I am absolutely convinced that there is no scenario for that on like, I guess, quest side, and then it turns out that someone did see me coming like years ago. It feels amazing. It feels like a real connection to someone I will never actually know. So I think this relationship that we get to build is pretty unique for our line of work, and I am very deeply grateful for that. And yeah, I guess thank you, and I would love you guys to ask questions if you have any.